Hey guys, I want to welcome you back to another episode of Pistons Talk Podcast presented by FanDuel. I feel like this is the first time I've actually done a post-game podcast live stream since the playoffs. It's been a minute since we've been live, but if you are new here, because we have gotten quite a bit of new subscribers on YouTube from doing daily podcast. If you're a new audio listener, we're going to be just kind of recapping the Detroit Pistons versus the Philadelphia 76ers Summer League game that just concluded. I'm not going to go over the quarter notes because I'm just going to spare you the details with that. But if you are brand new here and you want to drop a comment about today's summer league. If there was a player that did stand out, definitely do. We do Q&As at the end of these podcasts. If there are any questions you have about any of the players on the roster, we'll definitely get into that. But let's um, let's get into this post-game podcast. Obviously, this was a loss for the Detroit Pistons tonight against the Philadelphia 76ers. But I think right off the gate, Philly just came out like really aggressive. I don't really think a lot of us were anticipating their bench players to be so damn productive, and we'll kind of get into some of their bench players. And then you have like a 35-year-old Johnny Brim out there. I know he's not really 35, but he was the oldest guy in the court out there. I think he's like 25 years old, but he was just killing the Pistons in the post tonight, getting to the boards, crashing the glass really hard. And this is the second chance points that Philly was getting. But if we kind of just look at the team stats with this game, obviously Philly does win the game 101-93. They beat the Pistons in the rebounding battle 48-35. Had more assists in the Pistons 22-16. Pistons did have more steals 7-5. Pistons had more blocks 9-6. Philly had more turnovers 11-9. It's good to see a summer league team take care of the basketball. Pistons did shoot a better percentage from the field, shooting 50%, but Philly shot a 42.1% from three to the Pistons 33%. Pistons did shoot 75% from the line. Philly shot 62.5%. They probably could have won this game more if they would have made more of their free throws. But Pistons do win the points in the paint battle. It's even the summer league team wins the points in the paint battle. They won 48-40. Second chance points, I think, is just like really what solidified this game for Philly. 28 second chance points to Detroit 6. Pistons did have 17 fast break points. They were really looking to push the pace. But, just overall with this game, the second chance points killed you. Letting Philly getting, those offensive rebounds, they just kind of outmatched you on the rebounding and on the glass tonight. But overall, you did see a lot of areas where the summer league team can get better. Isaac Jones had 22 points for the Detroit Pistons, who is a Detroit Pistons two-way player. Ebuka Okorie in his debut had 20 points. Really liked what I saw out of him. I want to kind of talk about him individually. Three players that I do actually want to talk about individually on this post-game podcast. Dante Maddox Jr., who, man, that kid can shoot the hell out of the ball for Philly. It seemed like every time he just let it go, it seemed like he was either getting to the free throw line because we're kind of reckless on closeouts tonight, or he was just making some really tough contested threes. Isaac Johnson, who I've never even heard of until today. There's always someone on the summer league roster. He had 20 points off the bench for them. Even hit Ugonna and Yenso with the Jalen Brunson Selly, which I was like, oh my god, we're doing Jalen Brunson Sellys in the summer league. Here we go. He is definitely what's the word I'm looking for? Jalen Brunson is, I think a lot of younger players like kind of look at what he's done over the past couple of years being an NBA championship, kind of looking up to him, but he hit Ugonna with the Brunson Selly after he fouled him on a 3-point attempt. But I do want to talk about Ebuka Okorie. And I was so impressed with the kid. I knew, like, coming out of college, she was a really good player. But I think what really stood out for me watching Ebuka tonight was just the pace in which he played with. I think in the first half, we saw him play very under control. He wasn't really hunting for his shot too much, but he was looking to set up his teammates. And if you guys watch the game tonight or you watch it back later on Amazon Prime, like I think what you'll see is just like a lot of the passes he had, he only finished with 4 assists tonight. He easily could have finished with 8 assists. If he's playing with an NBA like center or just NBA players around him, he's gonna easily be like a 4.5, 5 assist guard per game because he's really good at finding those pocket passes and distributing the basketball. And I was really impressed with just his overall pace in the second half. Now, coming out of halftime, third quarter in particular, the guy scored 7 points in about maybe 2 minutes. And he was doing it on both ends of the floor. He was doing it, uh, you know, stealing the basketball. He had 2 steals within like that 2.5 minute uh, time span coming out of halftime, and he got the Pistons back into the game single-handedly with he made a 3, and then he had a couple of takes to the basket, and it was just like, okay, like he's gonna be a little bit more aggressive. So you got to see like 2 sides of his game of being more in like facilitation mode and just being like trying to set like players up initially, and then what out of halftime, what you saw is like, okay, I need to be a little bit more aggressive. I need to hunt for my shot. I need to look for my shot. I think, his overall debut, I was very impressed with. There were a couple possessions where I think if he had a do-over to have them back, he definitely would. There was maybe 2 possessions in particular that I can think of off the top of my head where it's just like, okay, yeah, he probably wants that possession back. That wasn't really good. It wasn't really a great shot selection by him. But overall, I can't really nitpick anything with the kid. I think the Pistons definitely found a guard that is going to be in the rotation next year. I already see some Pistons fans saying, I'd be shocked if he plays 5 minutes a game. I'd be shocked if he's not your back on point guard. And maybe that's a just an overreaction by me, but just the way that he played in his first summer league game, he wasn't really getting sped up whatsoever. He seems really under control, and even Trajan's comments, post pressure when he did draft him, so we envision him as a backup point guard, and you have a backup point guard, and you also have Danish Jenkins off the bench, so you have more ball handlers with the second unit. And I think Ebuka Okorie is going to be a really good pick and selection for the Detroit Pistons. Was really impressed with him. I was also impressed with Phylon too. Phylon's going to be a really good pick. See a lot of Pistons fans like they do this every year because Phylon slipped in the draft and he was supposed to be a lottery pick, and then we trade up and we don't select him. Like I get it. Like I get if you wanted Phylon, I get if you wanted Ebuka Okorie or Cameron Carr. Like the end of the day, we all plant our flags with players that we want in the draft. But I think Abuka is a good combination of being a facilitation point guard, being a pass first point guard, but can also get into his own rhythm and get into his own shots. So I was really impressed with the kid overall. One of the other players that I did want to talk about was Drake Allen. Now, Drake Allen is an Exhibit 10 day. If you guys did watch our breakdown of the Detroit Pistons Summer League roster, I talked about Drake Allen of being like very athletic, but what I didn't really anticipate was his defense today. He's very athletic. He's kind of like a taller, like combo guard. But the defense that he was playing in the second half, especially against Phylon, who a lot of people think very highly of. This guy is, an older prospect, obviously out of Utah State, but this defense was incredible tonight. I would have liked to see him more personally in the first half. I thought the bench unit overall, defensively did a much better job, and that was because of guys like Drake Allen and one of the other guys that we're going to talk about next. But I was really impressed with him. I want to see a little bit more though offensively from him. I know that there is some things that he can do. I know he can, make 3-point shots. He's not a knockdown 40% 3-point shooter by any means, but he is capable of making threes. He can put the ball in the basket, very athletic. Could put guys on posters as well because he's just so springy. as a combo guard, but was really impressed with Drake Allen's defense. I'd like to see him possibly in the starting lineup next to Ebuka Okorie to kind of see like what that flow looks like with him, with more of a defensive combo guard where they can kind of play off each other of like bringing the ball up the court and having different kind of sets and combinations. The last guy I do want to talk about. Sorry if my throat's a little scratchy today. It's just allergies. Roddy Gale Jr., Michigan kid. I'm not too surprised with just his grit and his tenaciousness tonight. He just seems like if you talk to a Piston fan and to say like, hey, he's a Detroit Piston, I think Roddy has all the characteristics of like what we want a player to be that plays for the Detroit Pistons. He's going to crash the glass really hard, compete every minute, and just give it all. And that's exactly what he did tonight. It's a shame that we don't have any more two-way contract openings. We actually did sign someone today, which we'll talk about on the podcast tomorrow. But he is definitely a player that I think just kind of oozes like that's a Detroit Piston. Now, could the Pistons open up a two-way spot and like wave like an Isaac Jones or players like that? Who Isaac had a really good game today. Sure, I don't think it would be Isaac Jones, but there are some other players that are on two-way contracts that maybe the Pistons kind of look at to give like a player like a Drake Allen or a Roddy Gale Jr. a two-way contract spot. But I was really impressed with just his overall effort tonight. I would like to see a little bit more out of him, get more minutes off the bench in game 2 in this summer league. Before we do open up the show to comments and questions, I do see there's 11 comments, excuse me. We do have to hear from our sponsors over at FanDuel, but then we will have a Q&A podcast the rest of the way, you guys. But right now on FanDuel, we have Eastern Conference winner odds, with the New York Knicks being the odds-on favorite at a plus 290, the Boston Celtics at a plus 440, Toronto Raptors at a plus 750, followed along by the Detroit Pistons and the Cleveland Cavaliers at a 750, and the Philadelphia 76ers at an 850. I will keep saying it. I probably sound like a broken record. Philly at 850 seems criminal. Odds are subject to change. Just want to give you guys that because the odds are fluctuating each and every day. But let's open up the show to Q&A with you guys. I do see a couple of people dropping some comments. Appreciate you guys. As always, especially this offseason, absolutely amazing what you guys have been doing with these podcasts, the views, the comments, the interactions. I appreciate that so much from you guys. But let's get into a couple of comments about this first Summer League game. Red Baron, real one, showed up for the preseason pods, preseason Summer League, any kind of pod. You guys are the reason why I'm able to do this every day and just talk about the team that I grew up loving. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Ebuka was better than advertised, in my opinion. That's what I kept trying to ask Paige, and even when we had James Barlow on the podcast about Ebuka Okorie, his time at Stanford. I think a lot of people just looked at his assist numbers and kind of determined only 3 assists a game. He can't be that good of a playmaker, but he easily if he was playing with Asar Thompson or Jalen Duren or Paul Reed or Cade Cunningham, he probably had 8 assists tonight, right? He is definitely a player that I think could be a secondary ball handler, could be in lineups out there with Cade in crunch time. I'm really impressed with the kids' ball handling and this is overall game. I think a lot of us still don't really like the pick. Even D-Town says Ebuka over Carr though still. Yeah, Cameron Carr, I'll be 100% with you, D-Town. Cameron Carr was the one guy that I fell in love with during the pre-draft process. I was really shocked he fell though, because anytime I asked these pre-draft analysis or these draft analysis, they would say, yeah, if Cameron Carr falls to 21, sure, go get him. But no one really saw him fall out of the top 15 when you had these conversations. And then he falls in the Los Angeles Lakers lap. Out of all teams, he falls in the Lakers lap. He's going to be a really good player, really good player. I mean, do the Lakers keep him long term? I'm not entirely sure. The Lakers offseason has been wild. I see some people talking about their offseason. I'm not even going to get into how they signed every white guy in free agency. You guys can have that conversation in the comment section. I see someone talking about it on Facebook right now. But yeah, Cam Carr is a great player. Ibuka's a great player too. I always thought like if they didn't go point guard, they went more like a wing. I think Cam Carr did make a whole lot of sense. Let's get into another comment. Does Ebuka take time from Jenkins? That's a great question. It comes from Gary Williams, 2758. I think there's a world where they can both play together. I don't think it's so cut and dry where that one takes each other's minutes, because when I look at Danish Jenkins, yes, he does play the point guard position, but I see him more as a scoring guard, right? Like we saw a lot when Cade was out during that stretch where, he's putting up like 21 and 7 assists. Yes, he was still getting the assists, but to me, I think Danish really thrives playing off ball. Like you could have a second unit, and I'm just spitballing out here. I'm not saying this is going to be the rotation, so don't hammer me too hard, you guys. You could have a rotation of like Ebuka Okorie at point guard, Danish Jenkins, maybe if you want to go a little bit smaller, maybe Isaiah Joe at small forward. Who knows who's going to be the backup power forward? Some people think it's Torian Prince. Maybe we'll sign someone else. And you have like a Paul Reed. Like you have like a lot of versatility. And that's, now that I think about it, that's like an extremely small second unit. But to kind of answer your question, I don't think he takes Jenkins minutes. I definitely think JB is going to be very creative with how he distributes the rotation. I could see just with this offseason so far, like we talked about, like, is JB going to shorten his rotation? I don't think he's going to shorten his rotation this season, this upcoming season either, because we have a lot of depth still. Like you have more 3-point shooters. You have more 3-point snipers. I think you're a little bit more versatile with John Collins, because John Collins could realistically, play a backup five if you want to go smaller. If you're playing a team that's a little bit smaller, but I think there's a lot of different lineup combinations that JB can roll out. Rock Howard was expecting to see more Chaz out there. Chaz looked good in the limited minutes that he did play. I'd like to see him be a little bit more aggressive when the 3-point shot isn't there, like try to put the ball on the floor as well. But yeah, I would like to see him a little bit more. Again, I don't know what the plans are for Chaz. Is it another year in the G League? Because we talk about the shooting guard room, like you have Duncan Robinson, Isaiah Joe, Kevin Herter, Danish Jenkins can play some shooting guard as well. Like, where does Chaz kind of fall in that pecking order? Like, is he going to get the Marcus Sasser treatment now that Sasser has been traded to Dallas, where you kind of just have Chaz there if you need him, but he's probably not going to have an everyday spot in the rotation. But again, it's a second round pick. I don't really know how much stock I want to put in like a one summer league game with Chaz Lanier. Preseason would probably give me a better indication of what his role is going to be, but preseason is another 2 months away. But maybe we will see a little bit more of Chaz Lanier in the next game. At a comment from Eric, Isaac Johnson for Philly played well. It's nice to have a center that can shoot from 3-point land. Yeah, man. Like I was like, man, who is this guy? He was snapping against the Pistons big. That was like a good find for Philly. But I mean, he may be a player that some other teams might give a two-way contract or just saw it out. I don't know if he's on a two-way contract for Philly. I don't have it pulled up in front of me right now, but he really kind of caught my attention. He was kind of under the radar. Like the two players that I talked about on yesterday's podcast was like Johnny Broom and then LeBaron Philon, because I thought those were the two players that to me would probably have the biggest impact. Johnny Broom obviously did. Had a double-double, was just killing the Pistons on the glass. But, I mean, he should. I think he's 25 years old. Again, like he's an older player, has played in the G League, played some rotational minutes with Philly. But, again, like he should dominate. against a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds out there. Arthur said he wasn't a fan of the pick. Definitely wanted Carr, but Ebuka looked good. He can get into the paint anytime he wants. Yeah, like I'm with you, Arthur. Like I still wanted Cameron Carr too. But Ebuka was like kind of like my like Carr was like my 1A, Ebuka was like my 1B. Like if he wasn't there and you still want to take a point guard within that range, then go get him. The more games you watch at Stanford, more you put on the tape. Like did a lot of things that I thought could translate well in the NBA. And like that first step, he's a really speedy guard too, which I think kind of actually plays within like JB Bickerstaff's system because he always talks about how if the Pistons can make stops and they can run out in transition, like that's how they can just kind of get their bread and butter and the fast break and the fast break points. And like you have the athletes to do it with like Asar Thompson and Danish Jenkins and others on this team that can really run up and down the court like Ron Holland. I do really like the pick with Ebuka Okorie. I do want to get into a couple more comments and questions. Let's get into it. Arthur does have another comment about Enyenso. Was too raw. He's got a long way to go. Like a lot of the things that he was struggling with, I think can definitely be taught in the G League. I think that's why the Detroit Pistons gave him a two-way contract. I know a lot of Pistons fans are like really high on the kid because he's a 7-footer and he can block shots. All that stuff, I understand it. But I think Jamel McMillan in the Motor City Cruise has done a very good job of developing centers down in the G League. He's got a pretty good track record of it. He did a really good job with Tolu Smith, who is now a standard contract player with the Detroit Pistons. I envision Ugonna and Yenso kind of having a Tolu Smith type of role. I do apologize if my camera kind of keeps going in and out. I might have to buy a new one. I have had this one for a while. I keep seeing it while I'm talking to you guys right now. I don't know if it's my internet or what, but want to get into a couple more comments and questions. This does come from the Demigod Tutorials. You think we are done making moves or we got one more starter caliber player? That's the $1 million question. Obviously, you have the Jalen Duren conversation. We talked about it yesterday of him wanting the max, Pistons only wanting to pay him $35 million. Pistons have his bird rights, so they can go pretty deep in the luxury tax to re-sign him. I'm not really sure what the next move will be. If it's another one, is it another trade? Possibly. I don't want to rule that out. I think when you look at the roster, yes, you did supplement the three-point shooting, which something that you weren't really great at last year. And you did supplement the secondary ball handling with bringing back Danish Jenkins and drafting Ebuka Okorie. But to me, I still want to see possibly more backup forward depth. I know some people say that could be Taurean Prince. He's 6'6". I know he has a 7-foot wingspan, but maybe more of a traditional backup four, someone with a little bit more size. I don't know if it's going to be a starter caliber player. Now, could it be? Maybe. It really depends what's out there in the trade market. I know Amari had a tweet, and a lot of people didn't like it, that Karl Anthony Towns was traded in October. I don't know if we're going to have to wait until October for another trade with the Detroit Pistons, but honestly, I would look for Jalen Duren resigning and maybe one more kind of low-key move. I don't know if it's going to be a starter caliber trade, but you never really know. But it'll be interesting to see. Arthur says JB is pretty hard on young players. I could see him putting Ebuka on a leash for every missed assignment. Yeah, I mean that's just kind of a veteran coach. I mean, Stan Van Gundy did the same thing. He did the same thing with Stanley Johnson. Like if Stanley made one mistake, he was out of the game. That's just kind of like a old school coach's mentality. Instead of letting them play through mistakes, you rip them out and tell them what you did and watch from the bench. But I think this organization has so much faith in Ebuka Okorie being a backup point guard this upcoming season. And I think they really believe in the growth and development of what he could be. I mean, you saw a lot of comps coming out of college. Like you saw like the Tyrese Maxey comps. I've seen some people float out Kyrie Irving, which I don't see. But I think is like a a point guard that is a little bit on the shorter side. He does have a lot of qualities that you want your point guard to have of taking care of the basketball, being a facilitator, being able to get his own shots when his teammates aren't making shots that he's trying to assist them to. But tonight's game was actually like a really good indication. Like if you guys watched the first half, he was looking to pass the ball almost every possession. Second half, he came out way more aggressive and looking for his shot. Want to get into a couple more comments. Ryan Anton, they want to develop Ron. He will be the backup 4 to get minutes. That's also a possibility too, Ryan. Whether they want to play Ron Holland at a backup power forward or have him back up Asar, I think they could do that. You also brought back Javonte Green. So, like, where does the rotation, like, kind of, like, go down that line? We'll probably do a rotational podcast pretty soon when this offseason is complete, kind of looking at depth charts and what a depth chart could possibly be. I'm sure it'll be highly debated because I'll probably be wrong because I always am with depth charts. But, yeah, Ron could definitely be a backup 4. Like, if you really envision the jump shot progressing, which I do, I think the jump shot will get better. You already know he's a really good finisher around the rim. Defensively, he's one of the better two-way forwards. I shouldn't say two-way. He's one of the better defensive forwards in the game right now, but we're hoping he does become a two-way forward. If he becomes a two-way forward, then we have something very special, and we should try to hold on to it and build around it, right? Someone says, I see Dennis Schroeder, and that's not a bad thing either with Ebuka Okorie. Like, Dennis Schroeder was a really good player here with the Pistons, helped them win some playoff games against the Knicks last season. But if his floor is Dennis Schroeder, I don't really think too many people are mad at that because Dennis Schroeder's a really good player. Looks like he might get traded again this offseason. Poor Dennis. But honestly, like, we definitely have a good pick in Ebuka Okorie. I'll get into a couple more comments. See Demigod again. We need a wing. Like, Trey Murphy is perfect. I'd give up 2 picks in Ron Holland. Again, like what we talked, I talked about Trey Murphy yesterday, which I'll just react to this comment from Demigod, but like Pelicans aren't trading him. They're not trading him whatsoever. Like, they want 3 picks and probably a SAR, or 2 picks and probably a SAR. Like, they have no interest in trading him. They kind of just teased a lot of teams around the league and said, hey, like, he's for sale. And then it's like, wait, never mind. You guys kind of blew it out of proportion. We're keeping him. It's just like, just make up your mind. Isaac Jones could push 4 minutes at the 4. I've seen some people talk about that as well. He is on a 2-way. I think from the scoring aspect, 100%. Defensively, I do have my questions because he has the size and length to be a good defender. Just oftentimes he kind of just gets caught just looking around defensively. That's not really his game. He's not really known as like a plus defender, but he's a really good offensive talent. He absolutely cooked in the G League for the Motor City Cruise, was on first team All G League, won G League Player of the Month. Like, he's been one of the better G League players for the past 2 seasons. I don't really know if he's a long-term backup for with the Detroit Pistons. We have a huge starting lineup and then tiny with the backups. Yeah, it's kind of wild, man. Like, you talk about our starting lineup, like Cade, Duncan is kind of on the taller side as a point guard. The Sar's pretty tall, John Collins, and then Jalen Durn. Like, that's a pretty tall starting lineup. And then you kind of go down into the rotations. Like, Isaiah Joe is kind of like an average size shooting guard. So is Kevin Huerter, and Danish Jenkins is like 6'4" as a point guard. The Ebuka is like, I think 6'1" or 6'2". Yeah, it's not the tallest second unit. Ron Holland's around 6'8". Javonte Green, I think, is maybe 6'5". Maybe. I'm not 100% sure. I don't have him pull up in front of me. But yeah, like our reserves are pretty small, pretty small. But it's honestly kind of funny. I did say I was only going to answer like 1 or 2 more questions. I do see Leggy Sports in here. How did this game affect the legacy of Ugena and Yenso? I don't really think it affects affected his legacy too much. And I know you're just trolling, Leggy. I was impressed with some of the things he was doing, but definitely a development project. Nothing wrong with that. You take guys that late in the second round. Obviously, like the shot blocking is still there. There's still a lot to like with the kid, but I think he's going to spend at least a year with the Motor City Cruise and just develop his game. I don't think the legacy's changed too much. You know, it's kind of like a LeBron. Like, how does this change LeBron James' legacy? But I do appreciate you guys, popping on in with this post game podcast. We'll be doing another one, I think tomorrow, kind of just breaking down the final two-way spot, and then we'll be doing like a podcast like we've been doing on the channel that you guys have been interacting with, and I absolutely appreciate that. Easiest way for you guys to support the podcast is dropping a like on this podcast and giving us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. But again, appreciate you guys as always. Hope you guys are staying safe. And as always, go Pistons. Peace.